I'll go back about 5 minutes here. But since it's already been proofread, it should go by faster and smoother than it was in the last video. Okay. All right. Okay. Hello, Desmond, said Daniel. Working overtime? I thought you'd be home by now. Desmond sighed over the cab's phone intercom and said, Daniel, what are you doing now? Tracking shows that you're headed down on Highway 6 now. Not Highway 93, but Highway 6. Do you know how long that will put you back if you head to Vegas without turning around? You daydreaming again? Daniel pressed a button on the phone intercom and asked, Are you sure there is no other road I can turn onto that will head me back to 93 so I don't have to turn around? Hold on, I'll check, said Daniel. After a scan, Desmond seemed somewhat more relieved. Oh, no problem. There's a road you can take, but it's not a main one. It's 318. Looks narrow. Juan tells me that it's snowing in the area. Please tell me he's wrong, Daniel. Daniel hesitated and said, Juan is right. Desmond sighed again. Why am I not surprised? You know, you really need to get your act together, Daniel. I don't want to have to report you, but refrigerated loads have to get in on time. You do know what getting loads in on time means, don't you? It means making customers happy. As Desmond began to preach on and on about the values of getting loads in on time and how much money it cost the company to get them in late, Daniel acted as if he had never heard such preaching before. But then he didn't know if he should pull off such acting of not knowing for fear of them viewing as an idiot. Should he act stupid, like Desmond wanted, or fight and disagree, making Desmond angry that way? Catch-22, Daniel said to himself. As Daniel found himself thinking of how trapped his life seemed to be becoming, he suddenly saw headlights in his mirrors. Daniel felt his heart start to race again when he noticed that the lights behind him were speeding toward him. It wasn't one, but two of them. Daniel hit the intercom button and said with a somewhat shaky voice, I think you're going to be happy soon, Desmond. What do you mean? Daniel watched the car pass him up. It wasn't a car, but a van. The windows were dark. Less than an hour later, it too disappeared. Less than a minute later, it too disappeared into the darkness. What do you mean? Asked Desmond again. Suddenly, Daniel saw a pickup pass him by at very high rate of speed as well. Unknown to Daniel, it was the same pickup that the truck hijacking killer had jumped out of a day before. Man, thought Daniel, is this Nevada's Audubon? Are you thinking of quitting? Daniel asked hopefully. I'm thinking of getting back into teaching science, said Daniel. A couple of minutes later, Daniel saw red taillights ahead of him. Before he knew it, Daniel was following behind the same pickup that had passed him up earlier at such a high rate of speed. Now the pickup was barely registering at 45 mph on the speedometer, and the van was nowhere in sight. Daniel clicked his left signal indicator. As he was about to pass it up, as he was about to pass it up, fear gripped his heart when the car slowed down to 40 miles per hour and moved into the lane he was turning into. The pickup was literally inches from Daniel's bumper. Oh, hell no, whimpered Daniel, realizing the situation that was now descending on him. When Daniel moved back into the right lane, the pickup moved over into the right lane as well, increasing Daniel's fear factor, especially when Daniel saw more lights behind him. It was the header lights of another big rig. Before Daniel knew it, the big rig was right behind him, due to his traveling 40 miles per hour to keep from running the pickup off the road, which was a temptation Daniel was now considering. Daniel knew he could easily crush the pickup if it proved hostile. It would end his trucking and maybe get him arrested, but if it kept a guy from going beyond just miming gunshots at him, suddenly the pickup slowed down even further. It was now down to 30 miles per hour. The big rig behind Daniel sounded its air horn. Daniel put on his emergency flashers, and the truck passed him up. The truck didn't block the pickup didn't block that rig. It was deliberately singling out Daniel only. Now Daniel found himself sweating. He prayed to God to get him out of this, but the pickup slowed and ended up doing exactly like it had done with a truck driver the day before. Daniel instinctively felt his foot putting on the brakes. He had been well trained. He even felt himself automatically turn to the right. Like the late trucker before him had done. But knowing that he was dealing with fellows who wanted him dead, he fought all his now fully ingrained robotic-like trucker programming, and as a Muslim-looking guy wearing black leather gloves sprang from the passenger side of the pickup while pointing a gun at him, Daniel quickly overcame months of trucker safety programming and took his foot off the screeching brakes. Instead, Daniel floored the gas pedal, suddenly taking himself out of what was to be a paralyzing jackknife. Daniel then turned to the left, not to the right, but the left, and charged his big rig into the direction of the pickup. Daniel saw terror in the Arabic-looking eyes of its driver as he frantically tried to back the pickup off the road to let Daniel pass. The sound of crashing metal and shattering glass was heard as Daniel's big rig struck the pickup at 12 miles per hour, knocking the pickup to the side of the road. The man pointing the gun at Daniel had his face bashed onto the top of the pickup before he was sent flying into the roadside gravel when the pickup was rammed. The gunman managed to get up on his feet, but the breath was knocked out of him, and blood was flowing from his nose. He was also skinned up from sliding on the gravel. Daniel heard popping sounds coming from behind him. He wanted to believe it was just firecrackers, but seeing the explosions in the mirror woke him up to the reality of what had just happened. As more gunshots rang out, Daniel geared up as fast as he could go, not grinding the gears at all for a change. In the cab, Daniel noticed that even though he had rammed the pickup, he hadn't put it out of commission. It was now racing toward him, with the gunman standing up inside it. Within minutes, the pickup was parallel with him. Daniel looked in his mirror and saw that the guy who was shooting at him was no longer pointing the gun the gun at him or his rig. Instead, he seemed to be concentrating on doing something else. Daniel smiled nervously as it dawned on him that the gunman seemed to be contemplating doing something out of the movie Road Warrior. The Muslim at the wheel, who looked about 25, was trying to take the pickup up to the catwalk of Daniel's rig. "Oh, no, you don't," Daniel shouted, his heart pounding, realizing that they were now planning on stopping his truck dead on the road by yanking out the air hoses. Anger was now replacing fear with such a realization. With desperation, Daniel swerved right, creating a wave. Swerved right, creating a wave of tractor trailer that crashed into the pickup just as the Muslim with the gun was about to shout Allahu Akbar as he tried to jump onto the catwalk. The Muslim with the gun no longer had the gun in his hands. He had tossed it into the bed of the pickup. His new goal was trying to jump onto Daniel's catwalk so he could pull the air hoses. But as so violent was the strike of Daniel's truck into the little pickup that the wall of the trailer had slammed. The wall of the trailer had slammed into the attacker's face, knocking him down into the bed of the pickup that was now screeching about as it tried to avoid running off the road. The Muslim at the wheel finally got control of the pickup and shouted, Allahu Akbar, as he charged toward Daniel's catwalk again. Daniel swerved the wheel to the left again, blasting the pickup with an even stronger side ram. So hard was the ram this time that all the glass on the left side, including the windshield, shattered. Seeing that it was hopeless to try to get to the catwalk, the Muslim at the wheel pulled out a walkie-talkie and started talking into it. Analyzing what had just happened, Daniel felt somewhat relieved that the Muslims had chosen the pickup to do their Allah work. Not only did he have a truck that was much bigger, but he also had guns if they were successful at pulling the air hoses. Daniel suddenly realized that the turn off for 318 was coming up. He would be there in less than a minute. But as he approached it, fear gripped him again when he noticed that the big rig that had passed him up earlier was now blocking the entrance to 318. Oh, no, said Daniel, with a feeling of impending doom creeping into his mind. Instead of turning slowly onto 318, he kept on heading down Highway 6. Well, screw you, screw you, Dispatcher Desmond, Daniel said to himself, realizing the fury he was going to get from Desmond, being that he wouldn't be going down the road they had agreed on. Oops. Yeah, I think I'll